I'm still mad. I was hoping drinking that water bottle would calm me down, but guys, I am very frustrated at Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch 2 right now because some news just came out that honestly does not make sense. And I'm gonna talk about it in this video. We need to put an end to this before this gets worse because this is starting to be a common thing and it very much concerns me for the future of what games look like on the Nintendo Switch 2. But before we get into that, I have to ask, guys, we're trying to hit 22,000 subscribers by the end of July. If you haven't subscribed yet, greatly appreciate it. We've been doing Switch 2 videos almost every single day. If not, that's fine. Let's jump right into this, I guess, rant video, but also a news update because we got some exciting stories that happened, but oh, I'm so mad. Okay, let's start with where this originated from. We got the news of WWE 2K25 update on when it was coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, we knew from the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation that this game was coming, and the developers, 2K, was very much hyping the fact that this was coming to the Switch 2 after their only release on, at least when it comes to WWE 2K18 for the Switch 1, was an absolute disaster for the system. They wanted to make people know that, hey, this game for the Switch 2 is going to be absolutely phenomenal. So we got an update on that game, a brand new trailer showing footage of the game. It's actually looking really nice for the Nintendo Switch 2, especially considering how WWE 2K18 was looking on the Switch 1. This is looking like a masterpiece compared to that. And in fact, we got a release date for the game, and it's coming out July 23rd, 2025. Now, you may be asking yourself, Max, what's the issue here? That's exciting, right? We got a brand new game coming to the Switch 2 later this month. You would think that that's exciting until you look further into it. They show in the trailer that they're holding the box art, and they talk about in the description and everything that it might be a game key card, which we later find out through pre-orders and box art upload images that WWE is not a game key card. And so you're probably like, oh, it's going to be on cartridge, right? No, it is not going to be on cartridge. It is a code in box. Yes, a code in box. The whole point of game key cards was to stop code in boxes happening. And somehow, in the Nintendo Switch 2 lifespan, we have already received, let's see, 3 code in boxes within the first 2 months of this system being released. What in the world is going on? I feel like we're starting to see more code in boxes rather than we were with the Switch 1. I am very scared with what's going on with this. And I think it's important to point out that this is 2K. And the reason why I point this out is 2K had a release for the Switch 2 launch, which was Civilization 7. Why I bring that up is that the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of that game was a code in box. Their next game, WWE, is a code in box. Why do I bring this up? Borderlands 4 is coming out later this year on the Nintendo Switch 2. That is probably going to be a code in box. I think everything going forward from 2K is going to be a code in box. There's been so much controversy with the Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes to its physical releases due to game key cards. And we've talked about it on the channel before, why these things exist, because Nintendo has only given one cartridge size as an option for the Nintendo Switch 2, that being a 64GB cartridge. And we talked about on the channel before how expensive those cartridge sizes can be. With the Switch 1, you had a lot of games that was not on cartridge fully because of the prices that it was with the cartridge sizes. And the reason why you're seeing so many game key cards is because Nintendo's only giving developers 64 gigs, and we don't need to see games like Puyo Puyo Tetris be on a 64GB cartridge. That's just going to be a waste of money for Sega and just make games way more expensive, which is why game key cards exist. And also game key cards existed to help developers start putting more of their games out physically and not do the whole code in box, or, you know, some developers behind the scenes were complaining about the cost of cartridges. So Nintendo made game key cards to be a response to the cartridge complaints, because apparently game key cards are like nothing to pay for. It is a very small amount of money compared to something like a 64 gigabyte cartridge, which further confuses me as to why WWE is a game key card when Nintendo went on this whole thing about how they wanted to help developers put their games onto the Nintendo Switch 2 with the game key card option, which people have been not happy with. And honestly, my response now at this point is, I would rather have a game key card than what we're doing with a code in box. Like, for example, I have Split Fiction right here. This one was a code in box day one for the Nintendo Switch 2. You have Civilization 7 that was a code in box. And about a week from now, you're gonna have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3+4 be a code in box for Nintendo Switch 2. We are seeing so many games go down to this code in box path that it is very scary of what's going to happen, and I feel like we need some sort of response as to why this is happening. We do not need these code in box releases. They're pretty pointless, and in my opinion, I feel like it might be bad for the environment in a way, because literally it's a box with nothing in it. And I feel like one of the whole points of going this path is to, you know, make it, I feel like what their official thing is going to be is saying environment, but you're still making this. This is a mess. Why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. Nintendo, you need to put your foot down. You made the game key cards to help developers, but it seems like it has made matters worse, because we're seeing everyone complain about game key cards, seeing games that shouldn't be game key cards in general. We need options, Nintendo. We need smaller cartridges for these developers. We also need Nintendo to just come in and help the developers, since that's something that they care about doing when it comes to third-party games on the Switch 2, which it feels like ever since Nintendo has put their foot in trying to help these developers, it's made matters worse, because now we're getting more code in boxes, and it's stuff that is major release games. Like Split Fiction, I feel like is a very big deal. This shouldn't have been a code in box. And it seems like we're going down a path that third-party developers could be doing a lot more code in boxes. Obviously, 2K, I'm pretty sure all of their games are going to be code in box, and I guess we'll find out later this year when we start to see the sports titles from them. On top of that, it's rumored that Rockstar Games is going to have support for the Switch 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 has been heavily rumored for this system. Take-Two Studios, you know, they own 2K and Rockstar. I'm pretty sure Red Dead Redemption 2 could be a code in box. This is very scary, and I know that so many people do not like game key cards right now, but at this point, I think we would all rather have a game key card rather than nothing like this. This is bad. This is horrible. I don't know what to do about this. This is something that I think is going to be really bad, because I feel like this could also play into the sales of these games, because like, what's the point? How do you advertise this? Oh gosh, this is, oh my gosh. I do have one theory that I don't know is true or not, but looking through the games and looking at what's been a code in box so far, I'm noticing it's stuff like, you know, Split Fiction. This is like a, let's see, I should show it on the back actually. It is a 75 gigabyte cartridge. 75 gigabytes of storage is being used for it. If you look at WWE, that's also taking like 73 gigabytes of storage. I'm wondering if there's a limit on how much you can put on a game key card. And if that's the case, then we need Nintendo to come through. They're obviously masters at compressing the files to make things smaller. You've seen with first-party games that you'll be like, oh, like Donkey Kong, for example. That was shown to be a 10 gigabyte game, and now as we get closer to the release, I think it was found out that now it's like a 6.7 gigabyte game. Nintendo needs to come in and maybe help these developers be able to fit these games on the 64GB game key cards. If that's even a thing, I don't know. If there's a limit of how much things can be downloaded through a game key card. At this point, that's the only thing that I can think of what's going on here, because as we talked about before, game key cards are like ridiculously cheap. They were made because of third-party developers complaining of the cost of third-party games coming to the Switch physically with cartridge sizes. So my theory is maybe this has something to do with the limit of what can be put. I don't know. And if that is happening, I'm telling you, Nintendo, please come in, stop this from happening, help these developers put these games onto the Switch 2. You have a history of helping some developers, like CD Projekt Red, for example. Y'all helped them with Witcher 3. Y'all need to do more here because this is becoming a disaster, and honestly, it's, I think, going to get worse if we're seeing something like 2K doing this. Today's video is sponsored by ProCase. Now, a lot of y'all have been asking me, hey Max, what case should I be going for the Nintendo Switch 2? Because if you remember in a lot of the videos that I had leading up to the Switch 2 releasing, I talked about that the official Nintendo case that Nintendo was selling is something you do not want to get because it is not going to protect your system. But ProCase has actually made something here that I am very impressed with when it comes to protecting the Nintendo Switch 2. First off, this is the case right here. What I like about this is that it's not a big case, but it's still noticeably protecting your system. It's slim, it has the handle to where you can take it with you on the go very easily. I like that very much, and it's got a hard shell to it and still not being a giant thick case. I'm very much a fan of that. And as you can see, I already have my Nintendo Switch already in here. And the cool thing about this case too, is that it can hold 24 games in here, which is honestly pretty cool. And you can also put like your charger and stuff in there. And it's got a little strap in here to where you can protect the Switch right here. It is a very nice case. Very much impressed with this. ProCase is also giving us a discount code, which is PCFan15, which will give you 15% off the case. You can check in the description below if you want to check out the case. It will help out the channel tremendously if you use that discount code. ProCase, thank you for sponsoring this video. All right, let's talk about some other things right now. There was a few other big stories that came out today. One that we've all been speculating about, and that's regarding of who developed Donkey Kong Bonanza. I feel like it was obvious that the Odyssey team was the one that developed this, but what had us questioning it is that Nintendo did not want to reveal who was developing the game for whatever reason. And now Nintendo officially announced at the preview event, because there's been a lot of Donkey Kong Bonanza footage that's come out because Nintendo had people out playing the game. They've officially confirmed that indeed the Odyssey team was developing this game. Now, I think this has a lot of people speculating of what does this mean for the next 3D Mario game. And honestly, in my opinion, I feel like with Donkey Kong Bonanza, I feel like it was maybe half of the Odyssey team developing this, because I have a hard time believing that this is what they spent all this time since Odyssey developing for. I know they also worked on Bowser's Fury, but that was also a smaller project that I don't feel like took too much of their time. I still think that a 3D Mario game has already been in the works, and it's something that we're probably gonna see next year, in my opinion. So if anyone was upset about this, thinking you're gonna have to wait for a 3D Mario game forever, I don't think so. I think Nintendo realized how important it is to get that out early, and I expect we're going to see it within the next year. Either way, the Donkey Kong Bonanza footage that's come out has honestly been incredible to look at. A lot of things are coming out about that game, and honestly, with what we're seeing, I think it has a strong case for Game of the Year contender, because Nintendo has hid a lot of stuff with this game that's looking really good. So this one's a rumor. This is all over the place. We don't know if this is true or not because Nintendo took this down, but Nintendo has indicated that the Nintendo Switch 2 has sold 5 million units within its first month of releasing. This all started because Nintendo updated their investors portal that showed the Nintendo Switch 2 sales numbers, but has since then taken it down. They've given no comment about this on what's going on with these numbers, why they were updated, were these legit. No one really knows what's going on. So I thought that was interesting. If that's the case, that will be one of the biggest, if not the very biggest launch that Nintendo has ever had. And I think that might be one of the biggest gaming console launches of all time for the first month of a system being released. I think that is the biggest, actually. So props to Nintendo for pulling that off, especially with all the controversy that was happening with this system, and they still sold crazy numbers. In fact, I'm pretty sure they took down the entire Steam Deck sales numbers within the first month of the system being released, which is kind of crazy. Well guys, that's pretty much it that I wanted to talk about today. Today's video was mainly to talk about the whole situation that's going on with this code and box stuff and how Nintendo needs to come in and stop this from happening, because I'm very concerned what's happening as we're already seeing 2K do this, we've seen EA do this, Activision's doing this, and honestly, we know Activision's gonna have a Call of Duty game coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 at some point, and I know those games take up so much storage, so I think there's a good possibility whatever Call of Duty comes to the Switch 2 is also going to be a code and box. I think also just anything Activision could be a code and box, which is just scary to see. And I know people hate game key cards, but I feel like what needs to end up happening, all of us talking about, hey, game key cards suck, stuff like that, I think those are valid arguments, but I feel like that argument should be put on a pause, and all y'all should be more complaining about code and boxes rather than game key cards. Or hey, maybe you could complain about both, but be respectful about it, because some of y'all in the comments go a little bit too crazy with it, a little too passionate about that conversation. In fact, YouTube takes comments down because of how passionate y'all are about that. Oh my goodness. But guys, I have been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, Discord, Instagram, all that good stuff in the description below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. Dude, I feel like the comments of this video is also just gonna be a hazard, dude. There's gonna be so many people fighting the comments. Oh my goodness gracious.